Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. The last review or book discussion that I posted went very well. That was I'm Thinking of Ending Things. And good news, I have another really good book to talk about with you today. And I'm doubly excited about it because it takes place in Michigan. So the book that I'm talking about is The Marsh King's Daughter by Karen Dionne, and this is a new release. My fiance and I were at Sam's Club, and if you don't know what Sam's Club is, it's a membership store. It's Walmart's membership store. That means that you pay an annual fee to the store, and the store makes you buy 500 rolls of toilet paper at one time. So not sure how that works out for me. We were there, me and my fiance were there at Sam's Club one day, and he was nerding out in the electronics section. So I said, I'm going to go check out the books. And by that, I truly meant I was just going to browse. I was just going over to browse the books. Well, I don't know if it was all this green that caught my eye. Happens to be one of my favorite colors, but I picked up this book and started reading the blurb, and then I had to buy it. There was no question, because somewhere along the line, with loving reading and especially starting a booktube channel, I have kind of made a subconscious commitment to read any book or any work of fiction that takes place in Michigan. So I'll talk a little bit more about the Michigan aspects of the book in a bit. I do want to tell you what the story is about. It is the story of a woman who is a wife and a mother of two small girls, and they all live in the Grand Marais area of the Upper Peninsula. And one day she's driving, she makes jams and jellies for a living, and she's delivering them. And while she's out delivering, she hears on the radio that a man has killed 2 prison guards and escaped from prison. And it's at that point she informs the reader that the escaped convict is her father. The woman, whose name is Helena, was actually born in captivity, only she didn't really know she was born in captivity. She is the daughter of a kidnapper and murderer, and the girl he kidnapped when she was 15 years old. Helena's mother was 15. She was living in the Newberry, Michigan area, which Grand Marais and Newberry, very real. And she and her friend had wandered off, and they were exploring, and Helena's father abducted her mother and took her to the Marsh, which is basically just wilderness in the UP, and kept her captive for 14 years. And 2 years after she arrived, Helena was born. So Helena's mother suffered horrible abuse. She was raped. Helena was born and knew nothing of their circumstances, just knew who her mother was and knew who her father was, and it was as simple as that. Fast forward to present with Helena as an adult. She has completely changed her identity. She has not told her husband who she is. Helena then decides that she was the person who originally put her father in prison. She will be the only person to find him and put him away again. She basically informs the reader that she's the only one who has the ability to find him. And so the rest of the book is about her tracking her father down throughout a pretty remote area of the Upper Peninsula. And while the reader is following that story, she's retelling events from her past. She's retelling, how she grew up and how she learned everything that she learned, and it's fascinating. My arm's getting tired. Now, this could have been a poorly written book, but because it was about Michigan, I might have been generous. However, turns out this is actually a phenomenal book, and even though it's about Michigan, I'm going to tell you what else makes it fabulous. So, the reader is taken on a very manipulative journey by the author. And I say that it sounds bad when I say that, but what I really mean is that's what an author is supposed to do. Karen Dionne has done what authors are supposed to do and led the reader exactly where she wanted them to go. When Helena, as an adult, first starts out tracking her father, trying to find him and return him to prison, we're retold memories of very early life for Helena, growing up on the marsh, growing up in the wilderness. And we understand a certain number of things. I mean, we already know that her father is a kidnapper, and we already know that she hasn't seen anyone until she escapes at 12 years old, did not see another living soul besides her mother and her father. But when I say the reader is manipulated, what I mean is the memories that we relive very early on in the book almost have this endearing quality to them. They're almost touching. And we learn that through Helena's eyes as a child, she idolized her father. Her father was very important to her. She loved him. He was the only father she knew, and she had no point of reference in any other individual in her life to know that her father was different. So, you know, he called her Little Shadow. He's Native American, and each one of her memories reveals more and more about the way that he raised her in Native American ways and tradition. And he taught her how to hunt and trap and track and fish and all of these things. And like I said at the beginning, through Helena's child eyes, the memories are sweet. And the reader is kind of got some moments in there. And then as the story progresses, as adult Helena encounters some monstrous and manipulative and cunning things that her father is doing to taunt her and evade her while she's trying to track him, the memory part grows in intensity as well. And suddenly the reader's opinion about Helena's father begins to change the exact same way Helena's did as she was growing up. It's absolutely magical the way that it's just worked out and written. And kudos to Karen Dionne. I'm incredibly impressed. I won't get into, spoilers, like exactly what her father has done to her and how she got away and all of that kind of stuff, and certainly not what happens at the end of the book. But this is a gripping novel. I have to admit that I've always been a little bit fascinated by the lives of people who spent so long in captivity, and have pondered what the childhood would be like for anybody born under those circumstances. So this novel was like, I ate it up, because this is the stuff I've often found myself wondering about, especially in lieu of like the Cleveland kidnap survivors from just a few years ago. It still feels like those sorts of questions and contemplations are very fresh in my mind. So this book spoke to me on that level as well. Even if it hadn't been set in Michigan, it would have had a storyline that I probably would not have been able to say no to. I was also extremely lucky to have a very brief back and forth with Karen Dionne on Twitter. I posted on Twitter that I was reading this book, and just sometimes on a whim, I include the authors of those books in posts like that. So I posted and included at Karen Dionne and said I was reading the book and that so far I loved it, and she thanked me. She responded and she thanked me for reading it. And then by the time I received her response, I had actually finished the book. So I let her know that, and I told her just how amazing it is. And my favorite part, which has to do with her writing and also has to do with the setting, is how realistic this book feels. This is a work of fiction. However, it reads like a true story, honestly. And yes, part of the reason I feel that way is because I know these locations well. I know the economic climate that she's talking about well. I understand it because I'm from here. But the way that we are in the present with the character trying to reach a goal, trying to find her father, it's like we're walking along with her. And as we're walking along, trying to track him, she's reminded of a story of her childhood at which she tells us. It's not broken up by chapter. You know, we don't do that yo-yo back and forth, present, past thing. You get present and past interwoven in chapters all throughout this book. So it really truly feels like, you know, we've joined her on the adventure and we're having a conversation with her, and she's retelling stories from her life that she happens to remember, and memories that are triggered by what's happening in her present. It's fabulous. It's fascinating. I cannot rave about this book enough. And now, as promised, the Michigan stuff. Holy crap. So Karen Dionne and I also shared our mutual love for the Upper Peninsula. I will tell you guys a little bit of a secret. It's not really a secret. So I live in the Lower Peninsula. I'm about 60 miles or so north of Detroit. And I can't, tell you what I do, where I work or anything, but the company that I work for is contemplating an expansion to the Upper Peninsula because there is a market for what we sell in the Upper Peninsula and in eastern Wisconsin. So sometime within the next 2 years, it is very likely that my company will have a presence in the Upper Peninsula, and I have put in my bid to go. That is how much I love the prospect of living in the Upper Peninsula. Now, I may be way off base. I might not be cut out for it, but I certainly want to give it a shot. Michigan is 2 states in one. We are basically a twofer. The Lower Peninsula and the Upper Peninsula are infamously different. And ask any Michigander, and they'll tell you how different the Upper and Lower Peninsulas are. Sometimes they'll tell you with animosity, and sometimes they'll just tell you as fact. People in the Upper Peninsula, they call themselves Yoopers, and they live in a predominantly rural environment. There are a few decently sized cities in the Upper Peninsula, like Marquette or Sault Ste. Marie. However, they're very few and far between. Given the fact that the population is low, the cities are incredibly spread out, and even then, still not that large. And it's in a northern climate. There aren't a lot of jobs to be had. I mean, there's more people in the Upper Peninsula than there are jobs. And given the potential of driving an hour to get to a city where your job might be, I mean, it's just all very... It's an economically depressed part of Michigan, which is already economically depressed. The fact of the matter is, I'm extremely proud of my home state. I love Michigan, and Michigan has so much to offer. And I think we have a bad reputation because of events in Detroit or things that have happened with the automobile industry. And we have places like Flint, which is, you know, infamous for being violent and also having a major problem recently, which includes, you know, we're a state surrounded by water where you can't drink the water. In truth, we are a wonderful state, and I am so appreciative to Karen Dionne for writing about Michigan, for wanting to write about a place that she appreciates in her home state. And like I was said before, Newberry, Grand Marais, which incidentally is the jewel of the UP. Those are all very real places. The wilderness of the Upper Peninsula plays a huge part in this book. It's almost a character in itself, this Marsh. And the author even talks about the Tequamanon River and the Tequamanon Falls. If you don't know what Tequamanon Falls are, I will leave a link down below, but I will also insert some photographs that I have taken in the Upper Peninsula at the end of this video, so stay tuned if you want to see actual images of some of the beauty that the Upper Peninsula has to offer. Anyways, so all of these things are wonderfully realistic and accurate inside this book, and they happen to be about Michigan, which I absolutely adore. So I don't know if I can speak any more highly about this gem right here, The Marsh King's Daughter. It is exciting, and it is painful, and it is hauntingly beautiful, and it is chilling. And while I wouldn't say that it is saturated with suspense, it sort of is suspenseful. I mean, all of the information is not revealed at once. It's a very slow, gradual build-up to what turns out to be an exciting and scary kind of climax, and it just feels right. I mean, the pace and it just all fits together in a wonderful book. If you're a fan of thrillers and are fascinated by this sort of topic the way that I was, then I highly recommend this book. And I would be very, very grateful to you for helping to support a Michigan author. If you have any questions for me about the book and something that I may not have covered, leave those in the comments for me down below if you've happened to read this. I definitely want to know what you thought about it. Give this video a thumbs up if you had a good time. Again, I'm getting ready to cut to some photographs that I have taken of the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. But before I go, thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will see you all very soon.